incident was about to take place that would shake the foundations of the civilized world.
It is time to open your mind. Time to discover your divine self as we navigate this holographic matrix together. Strap in, cosmic family, as we slide through this wormhole of cosmic information together in search of the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
It's time to go inside the matrix. With your host, Jimmy Brent.
All right, welcome everybody to Inside the Matrix today. We're so happy that you're here with us, whether it's live or listening to the archive. We really appreciate you out there. And before we get started, as usual, I want to thank all of our listeners who are supporting us financially through this KCOR network and helping us keep the show on the air. We really appreciate you, and especially our good friend, Florida Chick. Okay, today we bring back David Weiss. David was on a little over a year ago, and we just absolutely love him. He's an avid researcher, a thought leader in the truth community. He has appeared on many of today's top YouTube channels and podcasts that promote truth on the internet. He was the former host of the popular Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole podcast, and now he's the host of the Flat Earth podcast and creator of the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, which is really cool. I got it myself and checked it out. And boy, I tell you, once you dive into that, you might spend weeks and weeks going through that thing. There's a ton of information. Anyway, welcome to the show. Welcome back, David.
Hey, Jimmy, thanks for having me.
Yes, always good.
When you dive into the app, I always say, bring food and water.
Yeah, and that's the truth. It really is. And, and I'm somebody who's been pretty far into this for a long time, and I still found a lot of new things in there that I found totally fascinating. All right, so
we live every day. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, there's new stuff to learn every day. I've been doing, researching the makeup of our world for, it's been 6 or 7 years now, and it is mind blowing every single day. But I'm at the point right now where my opening line is, it's 2020, and can you believe there are still people that believe we live on a spinning ball?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been about 5 years for me.
That's where my head's at.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I mean, there is no excuse for it unless you just aren't the type of person that wants to look into it. Then, of course, you're going to just go with what you were programmed with, which is what most people do. And of course, we're seeing the evidence of massive mind control programming this year with all the Corona 1984 masquerade that we see going on, and the globalist overreach, the globalist lockdown system, which is absolute insanity and a huge test for humanity as far as I'm concerned. And the question is, will we be able to, maintain ourselves in some semblance of freedom, or are we just going to roll over? What do you think, David?
That is a great question. How is it going to end? Everybody wants to know how the Truman Show is going to end.
Yeah.
Because we truly are living inside the Truman Show. The question is, the way I look at it is the way they get away with all of the nonsense they get away with, making us believe all of the crap that everyone's afraid of, is because they have us believing that we are lost in space, spinning out of control, helpless, hopeless, godless, and lost. And once you are in that state, and that's a state of fear because an asteroid could hit, we're running out of resources, all of the nonsense they put out there keeps us in fear, makes us think we're insignificant, stops us from manifesting the world that we want and manifesting the world that they want. So the question is, can this all turn out better? Absolutely, if people wake up. That's why, people say, with all the stuff going on in the world, what difference does the shape of the earth make? And it's not the shape of the earth that makes the difference. It's the lie. Because once you know who you are, where you are, what you are, have your feet planted flat on the ground, you can take your power back, and they have no power over you. And if everyone woke up overnight, all governments would be gone. They'd be done. They would have no power because everybody would take their power back.
I absolutely agree with that. fear is the prime motivator. So the mainstream media spends in the men and the women in the lab coats. They spend all their time trying to spin their little lies of fear to keep everybody in that state of mind. Because when you're in fear, you're in a very weak and vulnerable state, and you're also very easily programmed in that state. So, and that's basically what's happened. And this is not just this year. This has been going on for a long time, decades and decades. They've been preparing humanity for this kind of absolute, clamp down. I don't know how else to describe it.
Long time in the planning, yeah.
Yeah, it has been, and the whole idea of completely technocracy and taking us over in this manner has once I think once they realized how powerful radio was, near the beginning of the 20th century. From there, everything else just was another useful tool for them to program humanity. And of course, television is the best probably, and the internet works in conjunction with that, and the videos and the images and the text and all that is combined on there. And but most people have gone through the indoctrination school systems where they're taught to be obedient and not to question and not to think for themselves and not even how to think for themselves. So what we're seeing is the culmination of a long-term brainwashing mind control program.
So long-term that it started before you can talk, when your parents plopped you down in front of Sesame Street or whatever. It's all ball programming when you look at it. Mm-hmm. When you understand the size of the lie, it's hard for me after 6 or 7 years of realizing we don't live on a globe to wrap my mind around the massiveness. I mean, all the space agencies, all of that is propaganda. All of the articles that come out every day, all of the discoveries in space, all of the Chinese just sent a rover to the moon, nonsense. But and the amount of articles and television shows, and then you go into movies. Half of the movies are space related movies, right? Or maybe even more than half. Every classroom has globes in it. News networks, global network news. Every movie has globe propaganda in it. Every television show. It is the biggest psyop out there, and everything's a psyop, by the way. Everything. This whole world is a stage, said by the guy that didn't exist, William Shakespeare. It's all a stage.
Oh, it absolutely is. And
yeah.
we can be, bit players or no players or NPCs or whatever we want to be in this play. And I think a lot of people are just so afraid and so bought into the propaganda that they're just kind of waiting to see what they're told to do next. And that is the last thing that we need to do. It's like you were saying, we need to realize that we are sovereign divine beings created by our Creator, and that these people have no authority over us that we don't give them. So why do we give a bunch of psychopaths out there who have no interest in our well-being whatsoever, all of this power? That's just mind-boggling to me.
Because
and we've got almost nothing but criminals in the political system and the financial systems. And, through the drip, drip, drip of over decades and decades and hundreds of years, actually, with financial stuff, we're at the point where we're at today. So I always ask the question to people who are wondering things like that: how bad must it get before you'll say no?
I think the elite, the people that are pulling the strings, are actually laughing because they're trying to push us to that point, and we just keep going along. People just keep going along. They say the dumbest things ever, and people just buy it. I was talking to some 20-year-olds, mid 20-year-olds last night, and I was talking about the whole mask thing, and they're like, well, what difference does it make? You put on a mask, to protect other people. After I explained the entire nonsense, how nonsensical masks are, and he's like, yeah, but what's the big deal anyway? You just put it on. I mean, they're brainwashed so far. It's unbelievable. Now, mask wearing is become a habit. It's not even a thing. People are just like more comfortable with their masks on now. It's it's amazing how far things have gone. I mean, if you just switching back over to the space, and the Earth, if nobody watches these Elon Musk, SpaceX launches and landings, they are the most ridiculous. I don't even want to say B movie rated, because that's an insult to B movie ratings.
Yeah.
They're the most absurd, nonsensical garbage that you could ever see, but people want to believe. Oh, so I'm getting this. Your question was, how do they keep getting away with it? And here it is. The reason is because people are born good. People are born trusting, and we can't even imagine the evil that exists. We can't fathom that people would lie on this level. And this lie is so evil and so big, people can't see it. People don't realize that we are in a spiritual war. They don't even understand that that's a thing. Okay?
Right.
They don't understand energy and how this world works. They don't understand that their thoughts create their reality, and they've given control of their thoughts to the ruling elite, or the wannabe rulers who are doing a good job at taking over your minds. Government is govern, is control, and ment is the mind. Control the mind.
That's exactly right. And, we're seeing that happen every day now. And people, for the most part, they are just going along. And I know a lot of people are getting fed up, though, even though they may feel like, well, I just got to do it, but I do wonder how far it needs to go before people will just stop and say no. And I'm thinking that it may have to go a lot further, but I hope not.
Jimmy, I think that the elite are we're waiting for, people like us that are awake. We're waiting for people to stand up for their rights and push back. I think the elite want that. They want us to push back. They want to create complete and total worldwide chaos so they can bring order back and have their new world order. And they can't do that until we agree, to destroy what's here, which needs to be destroyed. So whether this ends in a really bad way or ends in a really good way, there's going to be chaos in that transition. The question is, what direction will that chaos go?
Yeah, that's a good point. And there's another aspect in this, and that's, the order followers, who are the enforcers of all of this tyranny that we're experiencing right now, and all the enforcers of the lies. And there are some sheriffs.
Just following my orders.
Yeah,
just following my orders.
Just like they said in Nazi Germany, I was just following orders, exterminating people or whatever they were engaged in. And that has always been, a incredible scourge of humanity, is the order followers who follow blindly their orders, whether they're moral or not. And this on a larger scale, this says a lot about our society in general. Are we a moral people? Are we just service to self people who will just do whatever's good for us and maybe do something nice once in a while for somebody else, but for the most part, just be self-centered? With that kind of a world, that's what we're getting, and that's what we will get until we decide that we want to be self-sufficient, we want to be self-responsible for our own lives, and then stand up for ourselves. It's not something that you have to do in a violent manner whatsoever. It's non-cooperation is the key. I mean, if they put out a mask decree and nobody follows it, there's nothing they can do, literally nothing. You cannot lock every single person up.
Right. What would happen if all of the store owners in New York City or any town or anywhere all just opened up their restaurants and said, everybody inside, let's go, and packed out the restaurants? It would be over. It would be over in a second. If everyone... I saw a meme on social media, was that January 1st is National or Worldwide No Mask Day. No. Every day is National No Mask Day. Okay. Yeah. Waiting till January 1st, that just is playing into the game. One day, it's like the don't buy gas one day. What's that going to do? Everyone's going to buy the gas the day before and the day after, and and there's no hiccup in the system.
Right.
I don't wear a mask. I still shop without a mask. There's a few stores that don't harass me. I've been kicked out, police called at Trader Joe's, at Costco. And I have held up the law to them, and I have argued with them. I filmed both incidences, and the police don't even know the law.
No, they don't.
It's amazing.
They only know the most recent orders that they've got. Really?
Yeah, that's what one of them said was, I'm just following orders, and I pointed out, I said, that's what happened in Germany. And he paused for a second, but he goes, well, you have to go, and they don't uphold the law. But people need to push back. People need to hold their ground and hold their position. When you make a claim, don't claim it and then crumble. Right? Mm-hmm. Like when I was being questioned by the police, they said, all right, let me have your ID, please. And I said, no, I'm not giving you my ID. They're like, well, you have to. And I explained to them, I do not have to. There's no crime. There's no victim. I am not required to give you my ID. They said it 5 more times. I held my position, and they finally said, okay. I said, you know what? I want your ID. Give me your card with your numbers on it. And they gave me their cards. Okay. But, people don't realize that, if you know the law, you win.
Mm-hmm. And that's another problem is that people don't know their rights. They don't know the Constitution. They've never been taught it. It's just other than a vague reference of, the Revolutionary War. And a lot of them can't even tell you who fought in that. They can't even tell you who fought in the Civil War.
Here's a misnomer, I guess, that I've been thinking about the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't give us our rights. It just lists our rights.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just reminding you what your rights are. Yeah. You have your God-given rights. Law is very easy. Don't get in anyone's face. Don't hurt anybody. Don't steal from them. Don't hurt them. Don't screw them up, and be a good person. That's basically it. That's all you got to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And help, and help anybody that you're able to help. Be kind to thy neighbor.
Yeah, it is a very simple concept. And if
so
we were all taught that, instead of being the people that want everything for themselves, and those are the heroes in the movies, right? All these financial wizards and stuff, they get out there and they just, go until they rip everybody off and step on everybody to get what they want. And that's considered in society as being, really powerful and great. And it's just the opposite is true. And it's very sad that they've been able to put those programmed thoughts into people's minds. And that's always there. People are competitive with each other. They want to get ahead. You get, I can't tell you how many times I've experienced the corporate backstabbing, people trying to climb the corporate ladder. I never cared about that, but there are lots of people who do. And it's a moral breakdown that we're experiencing. And when you have a moral breakdown, this is what you get. It's very obvious that the more moral a society is, the freer a society is, because moral people are self-responsible, and they respect the rights of others. But an immoral society, one that can be bought, like all these politicians and media people and financial people and all that, they're out for themselves. They have no morals. They have no care for humanity as a whole. It's just whatever they can get out of it. And is what's got us into the position that we're into today.
The way I look at this world is our mission here, our soul mission. I just actually realized that tie into what I'm saying, is to maintain control of our soul. We have a main soul in our body, and we have a family of souls. This is my belief. Mm-hmm. And that your soul has a mission, and the more you align with that mission, the better your life's going to go. And that mission has to do, obey God's law, and experience this world for the amazing place that it is. So many people sell their souls, for fame and fortune. And
they do.
There's people that don't sell their souls that do, make money, right? And don't get me wrong, I like my things. I like having, things. I don't, being poor is tougher than not being poor, but it's not about the money. I live in the Beverly Hills of the East Coast. I live in that town, and there's many, many people here of great wealth, people that work in Wall Street. I'm 35 minutes out of New York City, and they're very unhappy. Most of them are very unhappy. There's very few happy people. There's a better way. See, they have us believing that, the nicer car you have, the nicer house you have, the nicer this, the happier you are. Well, that's not true. No. But don't get me wrong. It's nice to have good things, but you can have really comfortable, wonderful things and live a good life. And it's better than any other way to do it. They don't want us to know that, you can create the world you want with your thoughts. That sounds like magical, but we do live in this magical world.
Yeah, and that, of course, that point is illustrated by the fact that they spend so much time and effort to program our thoughts, right? They want to control what we think because they want us to create the world. We are the creators here on Earth. They want us to create the world that they want, which is one where they control us in every aspect of our lives. We're just the little pawns to be utilized any way they see fit. They refer to us as useless eaters or the bewildered herd. If you've gotten into silent weapons for client wars, or any of that stuff, you realize the way they refer to us is like that. They just think of us like just animals that they can just herd around and control any way they want. And No,
I was going to say, if you look at I was just watching some space propaganda, what the Chinese are planning on doing in space in the future. It's all total nonsense. They treat us like infants, like we're complete and total ignorant. And here's the thing: people are really ignorant to what's going on in this world. They've been brainwashed, and I see how the elite look at us. I get it. I'm not for it, and it's because they've deceived us, but they treat us as really mindless infants.
Well, they prove their point every day, and that's the sad part for us, right? That we see this, and they prove their point this year by forcing us to lock down and to mask up. And now, the next thing is they want to force us into all these poisonous vaccines, and it just never ends. And you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile or two. So, that's really what we're up against, and we need to have a grand awakening. We need to have this. There is somewhat of a wave of that. You do see enough people that are waking up and are trying to make a difference like we are. And so I'm hoping and praying that it's going to be enough, because I don't want to live in this kind of a world where we have so little freedom left and people don't even realize it. It's the dystopian nightmare that we all never wanted to face, right?
Absolutely. It's amazing how people fall for all of this stuff. And I had a thought, I lost it. I have to remember it on the other side. But again, it all ties in. It all ties into what we're talking about today, is this deception, and it's how they control our minds.
Yep. And we'll jump back on that in just a little bit, David. We're going to take a short pause right here. You're listening to Inside the Matrix with our special guest, David Weiss. Stick around with us and give us a call or pop something in the chat if you've got a question. We'll be happy to talk with you on that. See you in a bit. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Matrix with our guest, David Weiss. David, we've been talking about, society and mind control that's being imposed on people right now, and how long it's been going on. Now, as speaking on the subject of cosmology or flat Earth or globe Earth or whatever you want to call it, the cosmology ideas, people say, well, what difference does it make if it's flat or it's round or it's a spinning ball or not? We've got all these other issues, things going on. But as you said before, this is the most massive lie ever. So once people understand that they've been lied to on that fundamental of a level, then they'll have an easier time understanding that they've been lied to about pretty much everything else too. And going along with that, their whole, the whole scientism thing and the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory doesn't work unless you got the spinning ball out there, right?
Correct. So the Big Bang Theory basically says nothing exploded, it created everything. And then that coalesced into rocky balls and gassy burning stars and left a vacuum in between. That's just impossible. And then lightning struck, created an amoeba that turned into a fish that grew legs, that found another fish that grew legs, that had a monkey that had a deformed baby that was a human. Okay. And it's such nonsense. But people believe this. And so why does it matter? They're hiding the creator, because if you don't know that there's a creator, you become lost. Right? Now, there's lots of people that think we live on a ball that have found the creator on their own, and they're having good lives. And there's people that haven't found the creator that are having decent lives. But if you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, you're missing out on something really big. I mean, my life has changed ways that I couldn't even imagine since I discovered flat Earth and that there's a creator. Because before that, I didn't believe in any creator. I'm not a big believer. I'm about knowing. And there's no way for me to know there was a creator before I understood that the Earth is intelligently designed. So that there is the one piece that will make you understand that there is a creator. Now, let's talk all day about who that creator is. You can have that argument forever, or discussion, not even argument. And that's all interesting. But once you understand the lie and why they're doing the lie, then you can start to see the big picture, and everything changes. They know that if everybody wakes up to flat Earth tomorrow, that they're done. So that's why they've put so much effort, and everything is about keeping that secret. Here's the other thing. People think, we've known the Earth has been a globe for 500 years. Eratosthenes figured it out with his sticks and shadows in ancient Greece. That's a lie. That was inserted into Rockefeller textbooks into the 1980s. It's not a true story. No one's ever done it. And as a matter of fact, I was interviewing. Do you know about my interview with Ruth, the 102-year-old woman, in January?
Yeah, I saw that. That was awesome.
Yeah, so I'll just tell the listeners real quick. I was interviewing her about the World's Fairs, and she was telling me a story about her 5th birthday party, and she remembered the cake and the people. And I was like, where did you go to elementary school? And she happens to go in Connecticut, where I am. And she told me the name of the school, where it was, teachers' names. I'm like, this woman has an amazing memory. And I said, what did they teach you in early elementary school in science class about the Earth? And she goes, they taught me the Earth was flat. But then they changed it, a few years later. And so this is unbelievable. So we found another woman in Croatia, in the 1930s. Everyone in Croatia knew the Earth was flat in the 1930s. That's less than 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I basically, and this is January going into February, I was telling people on all the radio shows, go find old age homes that you have access to, find people that are over 100, because there's not much time left. 10 years from now, all of these people are going to be gone. I said, find them, interview them. Let's get some more testimonies. And everyone was lining up to do that. And then, bam, COVID hit. All nursing homes are closed. You can't access them to this very day. Isn't that amazing? So it's possible. Yeah. It's quite possible that I am personally responsible for the lockdown.
I love it. Yeah,
they're like, all right, they figured it out. They figured it out. They're going after the old timers. Shut it down.
Yeah, we don't want to hear from them. That's for sure. We would like to kill them off. That's these psychopaths.
And maybe that's why they're giving them the vaccine first.
Oh yeah, they want to get rid of them in a bad way because they can still remember things that happened, the way things were, and things like our rights and that things that people have forgotten these days. And I keep
another. Go ahead. Sorry, I was saying another thing that she told me was when she was a small child, there was giant airships in the sky. There was giant airships that they would occasionally see that were gigantic. She couldn't describe how big they were. So airships like Zeppelins, but bigger than Zeppelins.
Wow.
And that's, in the early 1900s. And there's lots of evidence that in the 1800s, there was many of them. And the whole thing about Tatari, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. But,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So and the reason I was asking her about the World's Fair is I'm looking into, the World's Fairs weren't what we were told. They were literally the transition from the old world to the new world. And whether we wiped them out, or I'm not sure exactly what happened, but whether it was a natural disaster, whether maybe there was a natural disaster and the remnants of them was wiped out of history, and that's when the takeover of our world happened. So all of our history is a lie, and they don't want us waking up. There's so many people waking up right now. They're trying to do another great reset. Okay. Seems like every 100 years they pull the same thing. In 1918, everybody was wearing masks. Everyone was forced to get vaccinated. Right? What's going on, Jimmy? What is going on?
History repeating itself. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's interesting. You bring up that whole Tartaria thing, because I've been diving into that for the last 2-3 years or so too. And you once you get into all that, you do realize that all our history is a complete fabrication and lie. We don't know anything about really what happened. And a lot of, as an example, a lot of the buildings that older buildings that we refer to as cathedrals or ornate buildings or Greco-Roman buildings that are literally all over the world. We've been told that they were built, in the Middle Ages or 1700s, 1800s by people with little horse and buggies and lifting giant slabs of.
We'd have a hard time building them today with our giant cranes.
Exactly, but we're led to believe that they built these incredible structures. Giant structures, with the horse and buggy technology. So, it's all a big, huge lie. And then you get into things like the orphan trains in the 1800s. Why did we have all these orphan trains? Where did these orphans come from? What was it about? What made it so that we had all those orphans riding around on trains? And there's just so many unanswered questions. And we talk about world cataclysms, or some people refer to as a mud flood could have happened. Could have had plasma, waves hitting the earth, and it almost appears in a lot of places that cities were literally melted.
Oh yeah, you've been watching John Levy, haven't you?
Oh yeah, it's fascinating, and that's just another area that you can go into to realize how we've been lied to.
Yeah. Everything is a lie, and Google is hiding it. All right. Can I talk about the app for a minute? And
go ahead.
The reason I made the app is I first had made it for myself for when I'm talking to Flat Earth about somebody and I'm explaining it. They're trying to think. Then I break out the app, and I had just made a test version to have it on my phone, and I'd show them how it works, how the seasons work, and everything, and they go, "Oh, that's how it works. Where do I get that?" And I was like, "Hey, you know what? Maybe I'll make this and I'll put it in the App Store." And I did, and I keep making it better and better and better. And now the app, it shows you how the seasons work, how the sun keeps track of the hours and days, the moon keeps track of the weeks and months, and the stars, the zodiac, keeps track of the seasons and years. And it works like a perfect clock. You know how they fooled us all these years? Yeah, the sky clock. The sun is the hour hand. It goes around once every 24 hours. But you know how they fooled us with our clocks? They go, "Hey, you better make that a twice around clock, or they're going to figure it out one day." Right? So our clocks go around twice.
12 hours instead of 24.
It makes no sense. So once you understand how that works, then you can start to see what the flat Earth is. So in the app, if you said, "Hey Dave, send me a video on the fake moon landing or how circumnavigation works on a flat Earth," if I sent you a link, the next video up is going to be a propaganda piece by Nat Geo or some other deceiving entity. So what the app does is, all of your questions are answered as a frequently asked question page. So you click in, it says, why the lie? Or are all space agencies in on it? What about pilots and scientists? Or what about Southern flights? All your questions are there. You click it, up comes a video, and then the next video and the next video and the next video are all from the app. It gets rid of the YouTube algorithm or the Google algorithm. And so you get all good information. And I'm saying, don't believe anything. I'm going to just show you some doors, and you can figure it out yourself. You can go out, do your own tests. You can see that ships don't go over the horizon. That's provable. Ships prove the Earth is flat. Seasons prove the Earth is flat. The star rotations prove the Earth is flat. Everything proves the Earth is flat, but we're told the opposite, and we never really think about it. It's truly amazing. So what I tell people is, if you like, all right, this is interesting, but I think the Earth is a ball. I say two things. One, come up with one proof that the Earth is a globe. Just one. Just give one, and I'll give you a Bitcoin. All right, Bitcoin just hit 28,000. Okay, at the time of this recording, I will give you a Bitcoin if you can come up with one proof the Earth is a ball. But you can't. But just before you start sending me stuff, everybody, get the app and ask your question to the app and look for the answer in there, because it's in there. And then you'll see that, I guess photos of Earth don't work because NASA admits that they're all composites. Right. Yeah, they're not real. They don't work. I mean, and it's not just saying they're fake. I could show you that they're fake. So the app has that. It has all sorts of other resources, including Tataria information that is updated, often, and all sorts of other things. It comes in different languages. It's available on Android and iOS, and it's $2.99. It's I've left my own company. I had a wonderful commercial solar power development company with a couple partners, and I walked away from it because I felt that right now the world needs to wake up, and seeing the globe lie is the best way to wake up. So that's my mission. It's $2.99 for the app, and it's well worth it. Just go to the App Store and just read some of the reviews, except for the few people like, it's not working on my phone. My phone crashed. I have like an old phone or something. Just read the reviews. It's almost 5 stars solid, except for a few trolls in there and a few people that, have, no space on their phone or something, whatever the reason is. But it works on 99.9% of the phones.
And your point is well taken, because if you go to Google and start trying to research flat Earth there, all you're going to get is the propaganda and all the misdirection stuff.
You're going to end up with the Flat Earth Society.
Yeah, and the Flat Earth Society such a joke.
Is controlled opposition. It's to make you laugh at flat Earth. Obama mentioned the Flat Earth Society 6 times in his interview, in his speeches, because he wants to drive, and anybody that wants to look into flat Earth, he wants to make sure you go there. If you Google images of flat Earth, all the Google images are going to be from the Flat Earth Society. It's going to show you a heliocentric solar system with a flat Earth in it.
Yeah, but you can fall off the edges, right? You can sail your ship off the edge and you'd be lost forever.
Let me explain just real quick what the flat Earth is for those of you that don't know. So, Jimmy, I'm going to ask you some easy questions, and don't overthink them because the answer is really easy. Where does the puddle accumulate? After a rainstorm, there's a puddle. Where does it accumulate?
Well, it accumulates in the middle of where there would be land on the outsides.
In a low spot. It accumulates in a low spot. Yeah. So the land, the edge of the puddle is just the ground that's higher than the water's level, right?
Right.
So now a pond is the same thing. It's just bigger, and a lake is even bigger. Okay, it's the same thing. What if there was some piles of land in the middle of the lake that stuck up higher than the lake? What would you call them? Higher than the surface?
Continents.
So I'm starting off
islands.
Those are islands, right? Yeah. So think of the world oceans, all of them, as a big pond, a big puddle, and the land that surrounds it is Antarctica. Antarctica is the highest land on Earth. So if you got on a boat and went to California, went to Canada, went to Europe, went to the Bahamas, wherever, you're going to pull up to the shore, you're going to walk off the boat, and you can walk into town, buy some beer, do whatever you got to do, and that's not a problem. But if you go to Antarctica, the land is 100 or 200 feet above your head, okay? Antarctica is the highest land on Earth because we live in the Antarctic basin, right? So Antarctica, the shoreline is the highest land on Earth, right? And that holds in the world oceans.
It's the container.
It's the container. And you can't fall off the edge of a lake. You can get to the edge of the lake and then take a walk. And how far does Antarctica go? We don't know, because it's off limits until the year 2041, and no one can even question that treaty.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't even realize that all the major nations of the Earth have signed that treaty and agreed that that's off limits. And you can go to the pseudo South Pole, which is, not even where it would be actually if we were on a globe. But that's only a tiny ways into the ice there. and you can pretend like you've been to the South Pole on a globe, but you are not allowed to go, even if you had the wherewithal, you had the money and the manpower and the equipment and all that to go explore down there. You are not allowed to, and if you try to, you will be stopped by military force.
Right, and you could apply for permits. It'll cost you somewhere between a couple $100,000 and a couple $1 million just to apply. You will be denied, and they will keep your application fees.
Yeah, so you have to ask the question, why are we not allowed to go explore when you can literally explore any part of the world except there?
Do you know what the reason is? The reason is 1957 is because environmentalism. They have to protect the penguins, and nobody can drop a cigarette butt on the pristine ice. So before environmentalism was a word, all the countries in the world signed on to this. They still agree to it today. They still enforce it, but we can chop down the Amazon jungle and
destroy
plant,
everything,
and plant, palm oil trees.
Yeah.
Amazing, right? It's insane.
It's ridiculous.
Antarctica proves the Earth is flat. Sunsets prove the Earth is flat.
Yeah, and that you made some really good videos on that too. And people say, well, you can see the sun's going over the horizon. No, it's not. It's just traveling away from you, and you have to understand how your vision works. Number one, and you illustrated it taking a light going over like a kitchen table, right? If you get down tabletop level. And you watch the light just go away from you, and it's not actually going down, but it just moves away. It looks like it's going over the edge, right?
Yep.
And it's just a result of how our vision works.
Yeah. The sun is above the clouds, right? Even when there's no clouds, that atmospheric deck becomes opaque over a relatively short distance, 30, 40, 50, 80 miles maybe. It becomes opaque. And since the sun is above it, it just goes beyond it. And, at 20 or 30 miles, that atmospheric deck where the clouds lay merges with the horizon. It becomes indistinguishable from your point of view with the horizon. And the sun is above it. It just goes beyond it. And it looks like it disappears from the bottom up. It's amazing. It's so simple once you see it. But until you see it, you think that you're on a spinning ball.
Oh, yeah. And another way to think about that is, if you've ever been in a large hotel or something, or a large building where you look down a hallway, and the hallway appears, in Vegas area, it appears to get narrower and shorter, when as
the lights merge with the floor on the far end.
Yeah. And so that is a perfect illustration of what you're talking about. But people don't put that together with the sun until you tell them that, and the moon too. And these are light sources, up in our realm that are, have a cyclical pattern and a circular pattern, right?
Right. The things that we'll talk about today, some of them are insane. They sound crazy. And those are all the globe Earth things, the explanation of the globe Earth. The flat Earth is really easy. It all makes sense once you see it. I mean, there are some things that we don't understand yet. Like, what is the moon? Nobody knows on a flat Earth or a ball Earth. It's not a rock in space. It's not 238,000 miles away. That's provable by its light. It's not reflecting sunlight, and that's provable, by the way we see, a full moon is lit evenly edge to edge. A single source light doesn't light a sphere up edge to edge.
Right.
It lights it with a hot spot, and it fades out towards the edge. The moon is its own light.
Yep.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. And we're seeing that. And same with the sun. We don't really know exactly what the sun is, and other than it's a light source. And there's a lot of things that we don't know, but there are certain things that are just blatantly obvious that we can know and we can sense, with our own senses, and they're undeniable.
You're in Vegas. Let me tell you an experience I had in Vegas with the sun. I believe that the sun and the moon that we see are projected into our reality, inside of the dome, inside the firmament. How that is being done remains to be discovered. And this is me speculating. So I was like, well, if it's being projected in here, how the heck is it so hot? How is it throwing that much heat? How can a reflection throw that much heat? So I was at, I don't know, was it one of the hotels there? I forget what it was. And I'm at the pool. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon, and the sun is, off about 45 degrees to my right, and it's blasting on my face, and it's really warm. I could feel the heat on my face. Okay. Mm-hmm. And on the left side, about 50, 100 yards away, is the hotel, and it's all mirrored windows. And the sun lined up with one of the mirrored windows perfectly, and it was reflecting on the left side of my face. So I'm looking at the sun in the mirror, and I'm looking at the sun to my right in the sky, and they look exactly the same. Yeah, of course I know which one is the reflection in the mirror, but they really do look the same. And then I closed my eyes, and I felt the heat on my face, the real sun on my right, and the reflected sun on my left, and I couldn't tell any difference in the amount of heat. The heat was the same from the reflected sun. So that tells you right there. Yeah, that is really interesting that, the sun that we see may be some sort of reflection or projection into our reality. It certainly does not act like a physical object. If you're trying to, like, someone's lost in the woods or whatever, and they got a radio, and you can triangulate them, and the more people triangulating, the more accurate it becomes, right? When you're trying to triangulate something. So if two people triangulate the sun, calculate where the sun is, they come up with a position. But every time you add a third or fourth or fifth person in a different location triangulating the sun to that equation, it gets farther and farther off. Okay, it doesn't narrow it down like a physical object would. It gets worse and worse because we all see the sun in a position relative to our own position. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And when we get back on the break, we just got a couple minutes left here, but when we come back, I want to start going through some of the basic ideas and the questions that everybody has, and that, there's some obvious questions that always come up whenever the subject is raised to people who have never really, thought about it before, or if they have thought about it, they just dismissed it as just being crazy talk or, tinfoil stuff.
I was one of those people. I dismissed it. I wouldn't look at it. I banned people from my social media for being so stupid to even suggest that I look at flat Earth.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I remember that video you did using a flashlight above the dome model of the world. And I thought that was pretty amazing because it looks so much like the sun would look, so that kind of illustrates your point of what you're trying to say there. Anyway, everybody, you're listening to Inside the Matrix with our special guest, David Weiss. We were talking about flat Earth, cosmology, and all kinds of interesting things. So stick around with us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Matrix with our special guest, David Weiss. Oh, David, before we get going, I want you to tell everybody where they can get the app. I had somebody message me on the break, and they're saying, well, this sounds like a cool app, but where do I got to go to get it?
It's called the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It's a long name, but if you just search in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store on your phone or your iOS device, it's you just search for Flat Earth, and it's the top hit. The Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It's by Blue Water Bay. You want to make sure you got the right one. It's $2.99 in the United States. It might vary a little bit elsewhere, and it is a blast. So get it, enjoy it, and what I tell people, just every day there's a new video. I do short ones during the week. There's a featured video. It just shows up on the app. Longer ones on the weekend. Just watch one video a day if you're new to Flat Earth. And, if you don't want to wait, hit the archive button and up come all the videos from the last couple of years. And, if you hit that, bring food and water and popcorn.
Yeah, you're going to be there for a while. Yeah. I know when I first got into this, and it was Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues that got me started on it. And I think it was 2015. And man, as soon as I saw a few of those, I just dove in. I spent at least 2 or 3 weeks, and at first I was like, I don't know, but it made so much sense to me once I dug into it. Within a day or two, I was like, totally, this is totally it.
Took me 2 weeks. I dove in for 2 weeks trying to prove the globe, and I came out the other side a different person.
Now, what was that experiment that they did in the 1800s where they tried to prove the Earth was moving?
The Bedford level? Oh no, that's the curvature.
No, that's the curvature one. It was a different one where they. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but they actually proved that there was no movement of the Earth.
there's a whole bunch of the Michelson-Morley, the Aries
Yeah, I think
failure.
that was
maybe
the
it was Aries
Michelson-Morley?
failure, the one where they put the telescopes up and they filled one with water. And
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
So the thing is, the scientists did all of these experiments with a bias. Experiments are supposed to go in neutral, but they went in with a bias to prove that the Earth was spinning, and they all failed. They all proved the Earth is stationary. Think about this. The Earth is spinning, orbiting, and chasing the sun at 500,000 miles an hour, moving sideways at 2 million miles an hour, 1 or 2 million miles an hour, whatever it is, doesn't make a difference. And we're, next year, a year from today, we're going to be, I forget, it's billions of miles. It's just a ridiculous distance we've traveled. But if you go out tonight and mark where the stars are at whatever time, go out next year at the same time on the same day, every star will be in the exact same position. Okay?
Which is impossible if you're flying through space.
Right. It wouldn't happen night to night. It'd be different every night. I don't care how far away these stars are. And then the whole thing with how far the stars are is nonsensical, because we can prove mathematically that you can't see that far. We can prove, the angular resolution limits of your eyes prove that you can't see things at those distances. Our sun, if it was right over the Earth, like a mile above us, it would fill the entire sky. Move it to where it is, 93 million miles away, and it's the size of a penny or a dime or whatever, held at arm's length. Okay? If you doubled the distance, it has to get smaller and smaller and smaller. You wouldn't be able to see it. But if you 8 times the distance, just to make sure you couldn't see it, any thinking mind would go, okay, it went from the entire sky when it was right over my head to the size of a dime held at arm's length. And if I went 8 times farther, there's no way I could physically see it. It would just be too small. Okay? That's a light hour. Okay? That's the distance light travels in an hour to go that distance. They say the closest star in our galaxy is 4.5 light years away.
Light years, not light hours.
Light years, not an hour, not a light hour. The number of hours in 4.5 years farther than 8 times what the sun is now. Okay? That's ridiculous. And then when you start understanding the inverse square law of light, how decreases exponentially over distance, it's all nonsense. Once you see the lie, Jimmy, don't you wonder how you ever believe the lie?
Yeah, but it's like you said, human beings are very trusting, and they're somewhat gullible, and but we're very trusting normally.
We trust the world that is presented to us, as the creator in the Truman Show said.
Yeah, and the Truman Show. That is such a great movie. Everybody needs to see that.
The True Man Show.
Yeah,
True Man Show. Right.
And everybody should watch that if you haven't seen it, because it'll illustrate that we are living in a realm. It's not. Not
words have meaning. Like extraterrestrial. It means more. Terra is land, extra territory. Extraterrestrials probably come from the extra terra beyond Antarctica, or even in the deep Southern Ocean, where we aren't able to explore because GPS doesn't allow us to get there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And we don't know how much land could be beyond the ice wall that we can see, which surrounds us, 360 degrees, and we call it Antarctica. But we don't know what's beyond there. There could be hundreds of thousands or millions of miles, for all we know, beyond there.
There could be other suns out there.
Mm-hmm. And now let's talk about the dome, because when you talk about the theory of the atmosphere and all that, it doesn't make any sense, because when you put an atmosphere next to a vacuum, the vacuum's going to suck the atmosphere out
100%.
So violently. Have you seen those experiments where they suck the air out of a railroad car and it just implodes on itself violently? And that kind of thing. Well, that's the kind of reaction you get. There's no way you can have an atmosphere enclosed around a so-called planet and have a vacuum outside of that, because there's nothing to hold the air in. It would just fly out.
People will just throw out gravity, the theory of gravity, the theory of gravity. And you can just disprove that with a straw. Point a straw down, put it in your mouth, create a slight little low pressure system in your mouth, and you will pull air or water up and away from the earth effortlessly. Yeah, so the infinite vacuum of space should rip it all off. Now, you and I know that space is not a vacuum. So so to say that there has to be a barrier because you have to have a barrier between a vacuum and a high pressure system, I don't believe space is a vacuum. I think space is liquid of some sort. But if you think about a pot of boiling water where the bubbles are on the bottom, right? You have a bubble on top of the flat bottom with the dome over it, separating the water, and there's no physical barrier. It's just a dome. So what is the dome? I don't know. Is it the high pressure that's letting it out, holding it up? Think about this. When we have low pressure, we have rain. When we have really low pressure systems, we get hurricanes that have rivers of water coming in. I mean, if you've been in a torrential downpour, you live in Vegas, so you don't even know what rain is.
Well, I lived in Florida for many years, so I know.
Okay. So you have these torrential downpours. Water is heavy, it's heavy. It's just so super heavy. Where's all that water coming from? It's not floating in clouds waiting for a little cold air to make it condense. Those heavy downpours are when low pressure. I think it's letting primary water in from above.
That's interesting. I never thought of it like that, but that seems very plausible.
I mean, think about it. You fly in an airplane. You fly through one of those nice thick clouds. Your windows barely get wet. I mean, yeah, they're moist. They're water vapor. I'll give you that. And if you push a cloud into a cold air system, it'll drizzle. But torrential downpours where millions and millions of tons of water are falling out of the sky, no, not buying it.
Could be some kind of a valve pressure system that opens up. Right? Yeah, low pressure opens it up.
It's more that's how it comes in. But I think it's beyond what we're even be able to understand. In our current situation.
Yeah. Now, what about that guy did you ever see the video of the guy that went in a submarine and he hit bottom in what he thought was water, but he couldn't get lower than that? He was he was way down there. I don't know.
And he said it was more dense, that it was just a super salty solution. That's very possible. Are these shows telling us the truth? Are they revealing the truth purposely? I'll buy it. I'll say, okay, it's true, and it makes a lot of sense. Just like we have different pressure gradients here. It's fascinating. Think about this. Do you know that in submarines that they can't stay down forever because they have to get fresh air? They can't just keep recycling the same air. Is that true? Do you know if that's true?
I don't know, but it would seem so, unless they had a supply of oxygen that they could keep putting in there.
Yeah,
because human beings cycle, they absorb oxygen and then give off carbon dioxide. So
maybe they're making oxygen. I don't know, but think about this: the space station has been up there for 20 years. Where are they getting their fresh oxygen from? Is the Soyuz bringing up new oxygen?
Yeah. That's so obviously a scam. I mean, there are so many videos showing the wires, the green screens, the
all you need
cables.
Is one to show that they're faking it. Just one time that they're faking it, and then NASA spirals and unwinds into a big mess.
Yeah, I mean, the whole space program is such a fraud. I mean, and it doesn't take a lot to find it, but again, you're not going to find it by doing a Google search, because ever since a lot of this stuff started coming out, they unleashed their trolls and their naysayers who will, cover for the scientism believers.
In the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, go into the frequently asked questions section, hit "What about NASA?" and there is one hell of a playlist there of all of the stuff that we've caught NASA faking. It's not us saying it's fake; it's us showing you they're faking it. Green screens, wires, mishaps, just nonsense. So, you only need one, but there's probably 150 videos in there.
Yeah, and then the so-called spacewalks that they do. It's interesting to me that these engineers are so retarded that they put all this stuff on the outside of the craft, right, that have to be repaired. They can't get to it from the inside, but they got to go do a spacewalk to get to it, right?
And if you watch the spacewalk, they're out there for 8 hours clunking around, and all they're doing is like tightening one big nut. And it takes them like 8 hours. I mean, one big nut. Wait, And would you say that the space station is the biggest construction, accomplishment of mankind? Absolutely. There's zero video of it being built. Yeah. Okay. You would think mission control has to keep track of, would need a dozen cameras on every maneuver when they were putting this thing together. But nope. It just appeared one day.
Yeah. It's top secret. You can't see that stuff, right? Yeah. And then the whole idea, I don't know if you heard that guy that talked, he was an expert in seals and valves and that kind of thing. And he said there's no way a space station could operate like that without constant maintenance of all their seals and valves, because they would just go bad and these guys would die if they were actually out there. But we know they're not. We know it's absolutely provable that it's all fake. And they need to keep the lie going. That's part of the show, is that they've got to keep the whole idea of space and space travel and all that going, so that people will continually fund it. You're talking 50 million plus a day that NASA gets for what?
60 million.
Or 60 million. Yeah. So what are they doing?
Over 60 million, but I round down.
Yeah. So what is mankind getting out of that? Nothing.
I don't think NASA actually gets that. I know that they don't. They don't need money because they're part of the cabal, and anything they need, they just type numbers into a computer and transfer them to somebody else, and they get the stuff that they need. They're taking that money from us. Mm-hmm. They're taking it. They're stealing that money from us. So that's what it's about. It's about control. Money is just a way to control us. The elite don't need money.
Yeah, they got plenty.
Well, they don't need it because they create it. Right. They just create it.
All right, let's talk about some other things like the plane routes, and also the idea that if you're traveling across a ball, you have to constantly nose the airplane down, or you're going to start going off into space, right?
Faster and faster. In an hour, you'd be at 80,000 feet if you didn't keep nosing down a mile every 2 minutes.
Wow,
crazy, right? Think about this. So if you have a plane, if the equator is spinning at just over 1,000 miles an hour, that's really, really fast. Okay. But think of a ball, and then you have the axis of rotation. So the equator is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. What if there was a runway that was exactly on the North Pole, right on the North Pole? Literally the pole, the axis goes right through the center of the plane. So you're sitting there. Okay. Is that plane traveling at 1,000 miles an hour? No, it's not moving at all. It's just turning around once every 24 hours. So you wouldn't even notice it turning if you were hovering above it, right? Because it's turning around once like a 24-hour clock. It's going slower than the hour hand on a regular clock. Okay? So it's not moving. So that plane takes off and flies to Ecuador. And it tries to land on a runway that's a north-south oriented runway. That runway is moving sideways at 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, how do you land on that one?
How did that plane gain that additional speed? I mean, it doesn't work this way, but let's just say its engine sped it up to 500 miles an hour. So we'll subtract that. The runway is moving 1,000 miles an hour sideways, right? That plane is moving 500 miles an hour forward. How is it going to convert that to a sideways motion and double its speed? This is what I was saying before. We're going to talk about things that are just nonsensical, and those are globe things. Now, an airplane leaving from the center of the flat Earth and flying to Ecuador flies in a straight level line and then lands on a stationary, non-rotating, non-spinning, non-moving runway. It's beautiful. Airplanes fly over the Earth plane.
Yeah, and there's plenty of pilots now who have realized this. I mean, they've been just as brainwashed as anybody else, and a lot of them thought they were flying over a globe. But then, when you show them, and they actually allow themselves to see what they're seeing when they're up there, they realize that they're flying over a plane, and that the plane doesn't keep itself at a certain altitude, over. Right. A ball, that's for sure.
Right. The on the Flat Earth Clock app. What about pilots? You click that. We have pilot testimony. We have pilots that when they're flying, these northern routes that are taking pictures of the sun and the moon, they're videoing from the cockpit. They're uploading these things anonymously because they can't publicly come out or they get grounded. We interviewed on the Globebusters show a woman pilot for some foreign airline, maybe Air Italia or something, and she was grounded immediately after that interview. She lost her job. So, we've talked to Qantas pilots and many pilots, and the Qantas pilots say off the record that they openly talk about the flat earth in their lounges together, but they don't talk about it, publicly because they want their jobs. They need their livelihood.
Yeah. And it's the same with like school professors or anybody like that. Anybody that's in a position of influence is going to be stifled in that way because they've got to maintain the lie in order to, keep their power structure going. And all of this stuff fits in. And it's no different today with all this, Corona 1984 nonsense, and
right.
Just taking massive control of us in all over the world, not just in the United States. And this is a massively planned and organized operation that they have, and all of their politicians are in place, and they're well paid off to do the bidding of these globalists.
What's amazing is that even if you show somebody that's sleeping that it is planned, like the Rockefeller lockstep document written in 2010, where they said
Right.
in 2020 they're going to take over the world with a pandemic, or the Event 201, which happened October last year before any of this started, that simulated the exact scenario and exactly what they're doing, how they would do it, how they would control social media, how they would lock down, how they would make people wear masks and gloves.
And how they would flood the zone. Remember they said flood the zone? They would flood the zone with their propaganda and their information to where the voices of truth and reason could not be heard or they'd be censored out.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're doing. People don't realize how much censored we are. YouTube was a great way to communicate. The problem is now YouTube you mention anything, I just lost my personal channel the other day for I put my Trader Joe's video up there. It wasn't even doing anything, but it was showing that you could stand up to the police, and they literally erased my entire channel. But what was my point? My point was I had a good point. It was the censoring. They don't want you. So a lot of truthers are going to other platforms like BitChute and DLive and stuff. Here's the problem with that. Go outside and find a sleeping person wearing a mask and ask them if they know what BitChute is. And they'll tell you what is it, where you throw your garbage from your apartment? They have no idea that it's another platform. They don't know that other platforms exist. And then DLive, awesome, live streaming, great. But then your video only stays up for 3 days and then it's memory hold. Okay. So these are they're great right now to spread some information around, but the sleeping people are still on YouTube.
Yeah, and Facebook and Twitter and
YouTube, Facebook, and hopefully they're listening to podcasts still, and podcasts don't seem to be too censored, so it's all good. I mean, it's out there, and now is the time that people need to wake up, and help people. Now, there's people that don't want to wake up. Don't worry about them. Let them sleep. But there's other people that if they ask you a question and you're prepared with good answers, you'll wake them up because there's an awakening happening right now that's amazing.
Yeah, so. And that is the hope that we have for humanity is that people will wake up and see things for what they are. Propaganda is a powerful tool. Mind control is a powerful tool, and human beings are subject to that if they are not aware of those things that they can be employed against them.
Right. What else do you want to talk about? There's tons of proofs out there. Any questions from people or?
Yeah, we're up against a break once again. We just got a couple of minutes here, but when we come back, hopefully we'll have some questions in the chat. I don't know, even if you totally disagree with us and think we're out of our flipping minds.
I got a Bitcoin for anyone that has one proof, a question that proves the earth is a globe. You got a Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big deal right there. And I think others have had, rather, huge prizes if you can prove it, and nobody can. Not even university professors, you name it. All these guys out there, none of them can prove it. None of them, and that's just amazing to me.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson says the science is settled. We'll never talk to a flat earther. That tells you something right there.
Oh, yeah.
Science is never settled if you
No.
have other proof. But they won't talk to us because they can't. Because if they do, they're finished.
Yeah,
they can
they'll be
only do
exposed.
hit pieces and straw man arguments. But that's not going to go anywhere. It will keep some of the sleeping minds asleep. They're like, well, Neil deGrasse Tyson says it. Too many people would have to be in on it. Bill Nye, the lion guy with the bow tie, he said it, so it has to be real because he's wearing a lab coat. So
yeah, that's mind control too. The whole idea of the lab coat. You were put on a lab coat, and all of a sudden you only speak the truth.
Power.
If
of
only
the
it
lab
was
coat.
that good, right? If only.
Well, a lab coat and a bow tie is super powerful.
Yeah, that's even more powerful.
Yeah.
All right, you're listening to Inside the Matrix, and we're having fun today because we're talking about flat Earth and the truth of our realm with our guest, David Weiss. We're going to take a short pause for our final segment coming up, so stick around with us. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Matrix in our final segment with our guest, David Weiss. David, a question that came up is, how come, if the Earth is flat, and I'm on Long Island, New York, I can't see the London Eye or Eiffel Tower or something like that?
Yeah, there's two very simple reasons, and I would think that most people, when they think about it, can figure it out. Is the air is like water, which if you've been in a big swimming pool, you can't see the far end of the pool just because of the density. It becomes opaque over distance. I live 25 miles from New York City over the water in a straight line, and I can see Manhattan, but it's very small. That's 25 miles. If I put it to 50 miles, it would be so small I wouldn't be able to see it because the angular size gets smaller and smaller, and then the atmospheric density just blocks your vision. If you've ever been out west or somewhere where there's mountain ranges, you'll see a nice green mountain ridge, and then there's the next mountain ridge is kind of gray, and the next one's just grayer, and the next one's just so light, and then the next one, you don't see it. It's just sky, but there's another mountain ridge there if you know the area, and that's just because of the density of the air. So you have atmospheric density along with perspective making things smaller and smaller and smaller and compressing them. When I look at clouds over my head and when I'm at the beach, they're at 5,000 or 10,000 feet or wherever they are. But when I look at them over New York City, they look like they're touching the water. That's just 25 miles. So that much compression happens, right? And if the city was another 10 or 20 miles farther, it would still be there, but I wouldn't be able to see it unless I zoomed in with a super zoom camera to open up that space, increase the angular size. So that's why we don't see Everest. That's why we don't see, there's nothing big enough to see at that distance, even if you could see that far.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And then related to that, how come we can see lighthouses from 100 miles away or other things from way too far away when they should be entirely over the edge of the curve?
Right. Well, the Globers will say refraction, that it's lifting them up, but that's ridiculous. There's according to globe math, it's at 3 miles, the drop is 6 feet, and it increases from there. But we can put a camera a foot off the ground, which the horizon of over flat water, over calm water at rest, should be less than 2 miles away. But we can zoom out to not boats, but yes, boats, but we don't know where the boats are because they move to known distances of wind turbines and oil rigs that are 10, 15, 20 miles out. And not only can we see the rigs, we can see the water surface from miles beyond them, right? And that water surface should be 100 feet below the surface or more in some cases. But
Right.
we can see them. We've done experiments with lasers and mirror flashes reflecting the sun and microwaves, and all of that works. Sonar, think about this. Sonar on a submarine. Submarines can spot other submarines 100 miles away with sonar because it's bouncing sound waves. But if the Earth was curved, all they'd have to do is go sit on the bottom, and any 10 miles away, no one would ever be able to see them because they'd be behind the curve. They'd be behind a hump of water. But they can see, with sonar for 100 miles or more.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, and then there was that guy that I heard he was in the Navy, and he was an instructor for some kind of naval weapon system. And he was saying how they could, what they call it, painting the target with a laser. In other words, they could actually hit the target that they were going after 60 miles or 80 miles away with a laser before they'd actually fire at it.
With a pencil thin laser. They can see it and point a laser at it, and there should be, at that distance, there should be a mile of curvature. It should be hidden behind a mile of water.
Yeah. So, again, those things cannot be disputed.
How many stretches of flat water does it take to make a sphere?
Yeah.
Right. There's zero proof of the globe. Now, there's things that work, like circumnavigation east and west, or heading from the USA to Japan, going over the north. You can do that in an airplane, or you can circumnavigate heading 90 degrees east or 270 degrees west. Follow that heading, which is a circle around the center, because if the center is magnetic, think about your compass. It's got to always point to the center. So if you want a dead wreck in east or west, those are circles. Okay, that can all be. That doesn't prove the Earth is flat, because we can do that on a ball Earth also. We can go over the north on a ball Earth. What you can't do on a flat Earth is go south and come up on the other side. On a ball Earth, you should be able to go from Santiago, Chile, fly over Antarctica, and boom, you're in Australia. Or even just stay at that 50 degrees south or whatever that latitude is, and just fly around the short part of the ball. But nobody's ever done that. Flight routes,
because it's impossible.
Flight routes go all the way up to the north, to America and across America, or they go up and they go over to Dubai, and then they go, excuse me, they go all the way back down, which makes no sense on a ball. Why would they do that? But on a flat Earth, that's a straight line.
Yeah, that's interesting. I saw your show with Charlie Ward, where you were going through that with him. I think he was a bit surprised.
That's what got him. So, but here's another thing. There are direct flights from Santiago to Australia, and those flights are often canceled at the last minute. And that's because we believe that they're taking the outer route. Now, they're not going all the way up to the north. They're literally going to the shoreline of Antarctica. They go up to about 45,000 feet, where there's usually very consistent winds that circle all the way around, that go 200 up to 300 miles an hour, and they get into these with this tailwind, and the planes that fly that, they're only flown by a couple of military pilot guys, and the planes are, there's very little information on them, but we had found an article about how they have 7 layers of paint on them, like heat resistant paint. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you they're going faster than a standard airplane. So even if it just went like 650 miles an hour, okay, that's not even the speed of sound. And then you have a 200 mile an hour tailwind. That's 850 miles an hour. The times make sense. And the thing is, those flights going one way sometimes vary as much as 5 hours going the other way. Okay.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Right. And it's not because they're flying into the winds. They're actually going around the other way, because it's literally like splitting the 6 and the 12 on a clock. But the winds change. And right now, for literally the last 3 or 4 weeks, those winds have been gone. I haven't checked yet. I'm wondering if there's been any direct flights. Those winds they stopped. Wow. It's very interesting. I don't know if that happens every time this time of year, but again, it needs to be looked into more. But who knows? Those planes might go 1,000 miles an hour. The Concorde went 1,200 miles an hour, or maybe even faster. So we don't know how fast these planes are going, what tailwinds they have. There's no GPS in the deep south when you're off land. So, it's all easily liable. And all international plane routes are managed by NASA.
Oh, geez, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a question from the chat for you, David. Brandy's asking from Twitter here, why hasn't anyone organized a live TV debate with a couple of scientists and flat earthers? I think that would make a great ratings for a TV show.
Because they won't do it. Neil deGrasse, we've offered Neil deGrasse Tyson many times to sit down live. They have their little paid shills, these channels that popped up out of nowhere that get hundreds of thousands of subs, and they're just these these guys that make these horrible arguments, and they make snarky, videos, but they'll never talk to us live. But on the app, by the way, if you hit the little web button, there's the button that says debunking the debunkers. So when you search Flat Earth, you're going to land on one of these snarky guys' videos. And I'm Professor Dave, and and here's 10 reasons that we know the Earth is not flat, and they're all ridiculous, dumb arguments. But his mind control is really good if you're unwilling to look. But we take those videos. We don't just say he's wrong. We show you how he's wrong. Okay. Mm-hmm. So all of the videos have been taken apart. They're all in that list. So everything you need to prove the Earth is flat and to prove it's not a globe is in the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app.
Yeah, and for Brandy, that's the same reason we can't get a debate like that on TV. You can't get a debate on TV right now about the whole Corona 1984 situation and how that masks don't work, number one. And number two, they've never isolated the so-called CV-19 virus at all, ever.
Right.
And that the PCR tests that they use to get all these false positives does not even test for a virus, period. And it's never meant to be used to diagnose any kind of illness or disease, according to the man who invented the test. So, we know these people are just liars from the get-go, and it doesn't matter the subject matter. They're going to lie about everything because it's all about, consolidating their power, taking control of us, ripping us off, doing all those things. And Flat Earth is no different, and it is the biggest lie. I mean, we're having some colossal lies this year, over this Corona stuff, but Flat Earth is the biggest one. And if you can get through that, if you can understand it and are willing to have an open mind to the point where you can see it, then you will realize that these same people are going to lie to you about pretty much everything.
Yeah, and I agree with her. It would be very interesting, and we would love it. But no, we've had some random, astrophysicists, some scientists. They're like, oh yeah, I'll talk about Flat Earth. It's ridiculous. It's so dumb. And one of two things happens. One, they come totally unprepared, and they end up leaving in a storm. Or two, they're like, let me just prepare for this a little bit, and they find out there's a problem, and then they cancel. They're like, I can't do this. I'll lose my job. Everything that they've been taught, they're indoctrinated with their entire lives, is a lie. That's a lot for people to deal with. It's very people just don't want to face it. I mean, if you spent your whole life in astrophysics, come on, you don't realize that it's all nonsense. I took 4 years of astronomy in college. I was really good at it. It was back when Carl Sagan had released Cosmos. Mm-hmm. And I watched it. I was so good at it, and the girls used to come to my room for me to tutor them because they couldn't figure some stuff out. I knew my stuff, right? 4 years of nonsense. I didn't know it then, but now I know it, and it's just like, wow, everything that I was taught is just theoretical nonsense. But we're taught to it as fact. Carl Sagan did showed us with the sticks and shadows, and he bent the board. He goes, it only works on a ball. But that's not true. It works on a flat Earth with a close and small sun. Yeah.
And that is another point, that the sun is not 94, 92 million miles away, or whatever they say it is.
It's
at all. It's
close and small. And
how far? Okay. What's your estimate on the size and the distance of both the sun and the moon? You got any ideas on that?
Yeah. Again, anything above our heads is speculation. And as I think I was saying to you off air, is if you triangulate the sun with two people, you do some calculations and triangulate the sun, you'll come up with a position. If you add a third person or a fourth person to that, you should be able to get tighter and tighter and get it more and more direct. Just like when you're using, cell towers to find the location of your phone, the more towers that you have, the more accurate the location is. But the more people you add to the equation with the sun or the moon, the farther off you get. So that's not acting like a physical object that is in one physical space. I believe that the sun we all see it in a different position relative to our own, and that could be demonstrated, with screens and projections, and show you how you can see the sun. Like if we had a sheet dividing a room in half, like a light blue sheet that was slightly transparent, and the far end of the room, on the other side of the sheet was a bright light. Well, that light's going to light up the whole sheet. We'll call that the sky, the daylight. But if you look through the sheet, you can see the source of the light. You'll see a bright spot. And if you and I were 10 feet apart looking at that sheet, and we had a third person go up, and I said, all right there, put a little X with that Sharpie. That's where I see the light. Your X is going to be 10 feet over to the right. You're going to see the sun in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I believe that's how our atmosphere works. And when the sun is projected or reflected into our reality, we all see it relative to our own position. That's why the moon looks like it's following you when you're driving down the road. Remember when your mom told you, no, it's not following you? Well, it was following you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. And then I think about stuff like the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and wonder if maybe we're in some kind of little experiment somewhere, and we're just little tiny little ants running around inside of a some kind of a realm that they've created. Or
we are definitely having a soul's journey here, and that we chose to be here, or at least our souls did, and then so we kind of have amnesia, and we're experiencing this. For me, I love roller coasters and I love puzzles, so I'm having a great year. I love it. A roller coaster and a puzzle all mixed together, like you could never have imagined. So, yeah,
it's the best reality show or reality game that anyone could ever play, right?
Yeah. And again, why does it matter? It matters so much once you understand where you live or where you don't live. That's, once you understand that the lie is the soul lure system. They're fishing your soul away. They're luring your soul away. They want to disconnect you from the creator. They want to make you believe that you are insignificant and that you are powerless. When the truth is your mind can create anything you want. Once you understand the power of your mind in this world, we literally, live in a matrix. Okay. We live in a matrix and our minds are building whatever we want. But if you don't understand that and you're in fear, you lose and give up all of your power.
Well, yeah. And you diminish your ability to send those vibrations out to do the creation. But collectively, we are creating the world events by our collective thoughts. The collective consciousness of all human beings is being steered into certain directions to enable these same, psychopaths that are out there running the show. So if enough of us realize our own power and begin envisioning and creating the world that we want to have, then of course all their world will be done for. And that's hopefully where we're going to get at some point. But I always have to ask the question, how bad does it have to get before people will say, no, we're not cooperating anymore? Because it's a simple solution. Non-cooperation is the solution.
And that's why I've taken up this path of waking people up to the flat earth, because when people wake up to the flat earth, they stop cooperating. They stop giving their energy. I told the experience I had with the police at Costco and Trader Joe's, and it felt good. It felt good, even though I still didn't get my groceries. I didn't win, but I held my position. I asserted my authority, and that was a win. But again, I was surrounded by, the entire store. I was the only one without a mask on. And I've been shopping there since March. That was just the last time that it happened. So yeah. I'm officially banned from Costco now, but that's a badge of honor that I'll take. You know what's great about it though? I have all these friends like, hey, I'm going to Costco. You need anything? So now I've got like Costco valets. It all works out.
All right.
It all works out. So
that's great.
So back to Brandy's question. That's a great question. They won't do it. That's got to tell you something. They will not come to the table. Well, it's flat earth is so stupid. We don't have to come. We don't have to. There's no time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society, as Obama says. It's mind control.
Yeah. And they would be exposed for the liars that they are if they were trying to debate competent people. And they will not do that because it just be too damaging for them.
It's an amazing world that we live in, and they don't want you to know it. They don't want you to know that they have zero power over you. I mean, everything from, all the laws, at the, you know what you're supposed to do on April 15th. Well, you're not required to do that, Right. Once you understand how things work, you can work the system and not contribute your energy to it. This is literally a spiritual war, and they don't want you to know that. And if you don't know that, you really have no ground to fight on. Plus, you're spinning out of control on an infinite, a speck in an infinite universe.
A meaningless speck, right?
A meaningless speck in an infinite universe. That's what they want you to think you are. That you're a random accident that happened. What would be less spectacular than the story of evolution is if a tornado went through a junkyard and made a brand new 747.
Yeah.
Okay. It just randomly put together a 747 perfectly. Okay. With nice lettering on it, nice painting and colors and everything. That's less spectacular.
Yeah. Oh, I know. The
More
complexity of human body is so far beyond anything, handling or happening like that randomly. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Hey, before we get to the end, let me tell people where they can find more information. If the app is $2.99, it's the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It's the best way if you really want to learn. If you want to Google Flat Earth, you're going to waste your time. You're not going to get anywhere. You're going to give up because you're going to come across nonsense. There's hundreds of crap videos going up on YouTube every single day to bury anything that's good. You can even search the name of the channel, the name of the video, of a key video, and it won't show up for like 10 pages in, and it's all crap in front of it. That's done on purpose to discourage you. My YouTube channel is the initials for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. It's just DITRH, Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, DITRH. And I have lots of short videos there, all free. Just go there, check them out while they last. My podcast, The Flat Earth Podcast, you can take the Flat Earth Podcast Challenge. Listen to the first 10 episode, and you too can lose the respect of all your friends and family, because by the time you're done, you'll be a flat earther. And flatearthpodcast.com has links to everything. If you want to find my interviews, go to the flatearthpodcast.com and click interviews. And I have lots of video interviews. We're doing an audio interview. This is a lot of fun. But I do video interviews where while I'm talking, I can pull up videos on my green screen and really show what I'm talking about. Like the one you saw with Charlie Ward.
Right.
It's powerful stuff. And just open your eyes. And then once you have your eyes open your mouth.
Mm-hmm. Share with anybody who's willing to listen. Don't waste your time with people who will stonewall you and call you crazy and everything else. That's a waste of time. But if people ask you questions and you have an idea of what the answer is, because based on your research, absolutely, talk to them and share with them. Right. And you never know when you might plant a seed. Right.
And when you plant a seed, if someone's like, that's interesting, gift them the app, buy the app for them, or just text them. In the app, there's a little share button in the settings or a gift button in the settings on iOS. Send them the app and say, here, just get this app, watch the video every day for 2 weeks. That's all you got to do. And then you're a flat earther. That's guaranteed. And the thing is, if you're a flat earther, $2.99 is the best investment you could ever make in a friend. Because if you can turn someone into a flat earther, you got someone to talk to, right? Because flat Earth can be very lonely if you don't have people to talk to. Like when we have conferences, people show up and they literally cry when they're around so many other awake people. It's the most amazing thing ever, just being around, having people to talk to. Luckily in my life, I'm so public that people know who I am, and so people are finding me. But if you're a closeted flat earther, you're alone. Okay,
that's absolutely true.
And the last statement is by Nathan Thompson, a crazy flat earth good guy, is you can lead a man to flat water, but you can't make him critically think about the shape of the earth.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. David, thank you once again for being on the show and sharing with us. Really appreciate that, and urge people to get your app because it's so much fun and so jam-packed full of information. I've been enjoying it for a long time for less than a cup of coffee, so it's a great investment. Anyway, everybody, you've been listening to Inside the Matrix. I hope all of you are doing well, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you, David, and we'll see everybody next week Inside the Matrix.
This is Inside the Matrix, hosted by Jimmy Brent.
Who are we talking about?
Jimmy Brent. Live every Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
It is worldwide.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location deep within the neon capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. For more information on the host and the show, please visit InsideTheMatrix.org. That's InsideTheMatrix.org. It's time to break the chains of manipulated consciousness and claim our true nature as creative divine beings. Inside the Matrix. Inside the Matrix.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.